One guy who's got quite the burden on him is Saquon Barkley. So that ankle injury, and I mean, you've talked about ankle injuries being things that linger, with running backs, with all positions, and you know, they're calling him a game time decision. Several games. It's still a while before they have their bye. I mean, they don't have their bye until until December 4th. So, would you play him this week?
I think if I'm in a position where I'm 1-3 or 0-4, I'm just saying screw it. I'm throwing him out there, and I'm hoping that he's active. Right? At least he's not playing on Monday night where you have to make a decision now. But if he's active, yeah, I'm gonna throw him out there. I'm gonna do my best to put my best roster out there because there is some data to show that running backs after a high ankle sprain, it's not the end of the world. The sky's not falling. Now the question is whether he's going to play or not. Some factors in his favor that he's practiced 2 weeks in a row now. We know that the average amount of missed time is about a little over 2 weeks, right? And that's what he will have missed by the time we get to this point. This will be his third game missed. So 2.2 games missed. He's been out since the 17th, right? So in theory, it's possible for him to come back. We also know that the mode, right, the most frequently amount of games missed for running backs after a high ankle sprain is 3. So you mix all that in the pot, he's literally right on the border. Yeah. My gut, which I've told you in the beginning, I've mentioned this before, I'm trying to use more of my gut, trying to marry that with the data. My gut tells me that he'll go. Another, small case example that we can use is that Darren Waller in week 1 was also a game time decision. Darren Waller went. Saquon has been practicing for 2 weeks now. He's a freak athlete. He's still a freak athlete. So he can bounce back and still be okay. I think unless the Giants are going to be ultra conservative, which they don't necessarily tend to be, I do think that he's going to give it a go. And I'll give you some data of what you see in running backs of Barkley's profile since 2016 coming off a high ankle sprain. They see 107% of their typical opportunities, that's carries and targets, and they typically score 120% of their typical fantasy points. Saquon Barkley himself coming off a high ankle sprain in 2019, he hit 90% of his average fantasy points from that season in that first week back after a high ankle sprain. The other thing you look at is running backs who missed 2 or 3 weeks. So any running back who missed 2 or 3 weeks due to a high ankle sprain, and we did give a cutoff point. We're not talking about the Matt Breeders of the world. They also score in general 124% of their typical fantasy points. So really, what this means, and what this data is telling us, is not so much like they're going to go off the charts and win your week. That's not necessarily what we're saying, but they are relatively close to. They do meet relatively close to what their opportunities are and what their carries and targets are. You don't see a ton of recurrences, re-injuries with running backs and high ankle sprains, although it is possible. So if Saquon Barkley's out there, I'm probably putting him out there based on what he's been doing prior to this injury. It's a risky move, again, similar to Cooper Kupp. But man, if I'm desperate for a win, especially, I'm putting him out there, and I'm having at least some confidence that even if he sees 80% of his workload, that he can rip off a big run against a Miami rush defense that's actually bottom 6, I believe. If I'm remembering correctly, they're bottom 6 in rush defense. So, man, there's some hope for Saquon Barkley. Keep an eye on it. Jump into Patreon. I'm constantly giving updates there, and stay tuned.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if he plays, you got to start him, and because I mean they're going to need every weapon possible against that really just explosive Miami defense, Miami offense. They're fantastic, and they are really not. They really just put everybody. They're playing to stop the pass. They're not playing to stop the run. The Miami is, and we know that the Giants, they're not a good. They haven't been a good defense normally, and now they've got to go up against Tua, Tyreek, Devon Achane, and Jalen Waddle. No me gusta para ellos. So they're going to need every weapon.